We're going out to the mortal realms. I'm going out with a soul to sell. I'm going out to the mortal realms. It looks like utopia, but it's a burning hell. Ha ha! Roll the music that's better than that.
Every man lives, not every man truly dies.
Not difficult. Sorry. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. All right. Oh no. Ah. Oh, pardon, ladies and gentlemen.
What was that?
I was just about to... That was me talking, and my throat just went, water now. See, I've learned over the years that I have no musical talent whatsoever. I have no musical ability. What I do is I make up for that lack of ability with loudness and gusto.
Enthusiasm, yeah?
So, indeed,
make up for it
indeed,
with
you know.
enthusiasm.
I mean, you've got like the people who sang on Disney's Aladdin, who are all very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
I just go for a whole new world, shining, shimmering, splendid. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm.
Oh man, got it. Oh no, we're gonna go down a Disney route for this one, are we?
Well, only if you let me be my guest. Be our guest. Put our service to the test. Tie your napkin around your dictionary and wave about the rest.
Oh my god, I suppose this is not a good time to point out that I can do Angela Lansbury's singing voice. I'm not going to, but I need a bit more drink in me before I do that. But I can.
Right, so when we get a Fluff and Meat actually up and running again, and I'm gonna have loads of fun with that.
Yeah.
It'll be
my
my first social experience being completely
yeah.
teetotal. But what I'll do is the drinks that I would have, I'll send your way.
Sounds good.
And then we'll get a tale as old as time going.
If I ever had like a drag act, that would be the ethos of it.
You'd dress as a teapot.
It would be Angela Lansbury, yeah. It would be Angela Lansbury. Specifically, probably her bed knobs and broomsticks incarnation, which I like very much.
Fair enough. I suppose that's better than Murder, She Wrote, which is just middle-aged 80s women.
I love Murder, She Wrote. It's so of its era.
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it? It's so of its era. I love the fact that when it's like Poirot, you know, when she calls everyone to the room to tell everyone what she's figured out, the one who's perpetrated the crime comes. They turn up. It's like, if you know she's in the hotel or whatever, just kill her. She's an old woman, you know, just push her down the stairs or something. It wouldn't take much, would it?
Oh, no, it really wouldn't.
It really wouldn't take much.
Do you know what my favourite thing about Murder, She Wrote is? Well, actually, I've got a list of favourite things about Murder, She Wrote.
The theme tune's great.
Oh, yeah. I always imagine, you know that bit in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when Daffy and Donald Duck are playing piano against each other?
Yeah.
I always imagine them two just playing the Murder, She Wrote theme tune, but madly. You know.
It's the ethos of the show that gets me. I mean, ostensibly, it's like supposed to be about crime and sometimes murder and whatnot, but it is such like grandparents' Sunday afternoon viewing.
It's so unbelievably gentle.
Right.
Yeah,
There's a sort of anesthetic, sedative quality to the whole thing. Which is ironic because Angela Lansbury herself has been in some very dark stuff. She's quite perverse as a person. You know, she's cool.
Original Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, she was the original Mrs. Lovett, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
She was obviously in A Company of Wolves, really dark adaptation of the Angela Carter story, short story collection. Very effective.
Great film.
Very effective in that. No, she's been in some good stuff as Angela Lansbury. I like her a lot.
She's just generally great.
Yeah, she is. She's quite fun. She can sing. She's in, like, I love the family film she's in as well. Like Bedknobs and Broomsticks is fabulous. Yeah. She's just got presence, hasn't she? She's one of those actresses who has incredible presence. The camera adores her.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being told that she was in like the original Sweeney Todd way back when I was when I was a wee nipper.
Yeah.
And my dad found a picture of her in a magazine from that time, and it's just she looks exactly the same, but also totally different.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to get that to work in my head.
But I like her. There's something about her that I really like to see on the screen. It may be associative. It may be because, you know, I grew up with things like Bedknobs and Broomsticks and whatnot, which is just so cool.
And you watch Murder, She Wrote every week.
It's not.
We all did.
The funny thing is, it's Murder, She Wrote you don't watch. It's just on. Do you know what I mean? It's ambient. It's like having the radio on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I was always sad that there was never a crossover, so you could get to Diagnosis Murder, She Wrote.
Diagnosis Murder, She Wrote.
Because then you get Dick Van Dyke and Angela Lansbury back again.
Oh, that would be good fun.
Yeah, and
Dick
you could
Van
play around
Dyke
with a lot of.
He's very much the male equivalent.
Oh, absolutely,
in terms of
he
his
is.
presence and like, I mean, he's one of the last surviving of the great old-fashioned movie stars who can do everything. You know, who can dance and can sing, and from the sort of cabaret days of cinema.
Well, the man's in his 90s and he still does
looks
it.
Amazing as well. Have you seen him?
Oh yeah.
He looks the same as he did, like when he did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but with white hair.
Yeah, I don't understand.
It's incredible. It's incredible. He's I like him a lot. He's again a presence, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, whether he's being all nice and jovial in Diagnosis Murder to some of the darker things that he's done over the years. And he's done a few TV movies which have made you just sit back and go,
Oh yeah,
oh,
definitely.
Dear.
I mean, like, even in films where it's good, he could sometimes be a bit odd, you know. I mean, there's the classic is Mary Poppins, you know, where obviously his cockney is not quite right, but still has a kind of charm to it, you know.
Absolutely. No, well, I was saying before, my favourite thing about Murder, She Wrote is that whilst Murder, She Wrote's happening, the A-Team is happening somewhere else.
Right, yeah.
Because there's a Murder, She Wrote Magnum Pi crossover. Seriously, there is.
Oh my God, really?
Magnum is arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and Jessica Fletcher gets him saved.
Brilliant.
Which unfortunately does not have a sequence where they have a drag race with her on a bicycle and him in a Ferrari, which really upsets me. There's a character in Magnum Pi which turned up in the A-Team. So through that connection, Murder, She Wrote's happening, she's there solving crimes, whilst the A-Team are over here blowing shit up.
Funny. Oh, Jesus God.
There's a few other things as well. There's literally an extended universe of these mid to late 80s TV shows, and they're all connected. They're all the same.
All the same universe.
Yeah, it's really weird.
That's madness.
It was pretty much done on purpose. You know, just recycling characters from here to go to there. You know, same actor, same actors, same actresses, same character names, the entire lot, same backstory. And now they're in the A-Team, and now they're in Magnum Pi.
Oh my God.
It's just wonderful.
There's a.
I think Airwolf's in there as well somehow, but.
There is something very cool to be produced from that, isn't there? Something that's very 1980s, you know, that's shot like a 1980s product.
Oh, can you imagine?
Could be lots of fun. Lots of fun.
The problem is that when you go back to something like that, like you saw with the A-Team movie remake, you can't recapture it because everything has to be of its time.
Exactly, yeah. The lightning in the bottle isn't going to... You can't do it synthetically.
No, it's either a pastiche or a parody.
It happens. It just happens, you know? Mark Commode made that exact thing when he does a series for the BBC about the making of certain kinds of cinema. And the episode where he's dealing with cult cinema, what becomes cult, he says there is no formula. You can't set out to intend to make a cult film.
No, and if you do, you will
exactly fail. The audience decides.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, what's considered a cult film, the variety is so profound between them all. There is no formula for a cult film.
No, of course there isn't. A cult film springs up because enough people latch onto
Right,
it.
right, and often they are critical failures. You know, they fail
Oh, yeah.
at the box office. They fail when they're initially released. Things like Fight Club, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Monumental failure when it first hit the cinemas, critically, financially, badly marketed, became just amazingly popular on DVD.
Was it a DVD?
Yeah, on DVD.
And then almost everyone got exactly the wrong message from
Exactly,
it. And it was the best thing in the world of like, you have misunderstood this film entirely.
Yeah, sadly common.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sadly common.
Do you know, we will get onto Warhammer
we
shortly, I
will,
promise.
yeah.
Also, I'm Adam, that's
Hi.
George. Do you know what I wish had become a cult film, but is one of those ones that sank without a trace? Right? M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening.
The Happening is like brilliantly bad. It's fun as hell.
I am convinced, absolutely and utterly convinced, he knew exactly what he was doing when he made that film. And he made the best parody you'll ever see.
It's like the minute Marky Mark turns up as an academic.
Yeah.
You
no.
just stop, don't you? You just stop and you're like, I'm not having that. I can't take this seriously.
The thing is, that first sequence in The Happening is actually legitimately it's upsetting. Yeah. It's an unsettling experience.
Yeah, there's some good imagery
with the gun.
there. The notion, the concept is good. It's just that the execution is rather lacking, and the resolution is absurd. You know,
the wind. It's when they're running away from the wind.
It's the wind and the plants and
I mean, for God's sake, can you not imagine being in a cinema full of people wearing mood rings, all saying the line, "But we had tiramisu together in unison"?
No,
because I can see it.
I can see The Happening becoming like The Room. Definitely.
Yes. If it was going to, it would have done so by now.
I could have potentially seen like audiences turning up wearing the Marky Mark blazer, and everything, the little bow tie and everything, trying desperately to look like an academic. I could have seen that. I mean, it's kind of sad that it didn't, but there we are.
I'm legitimately sad by this. Like, the idea... The Happening is a film I've seen probably about 20 times now, right? And it's not because I put it on to watch. It's because I enjoy the experience of watching it with other people.
Yeah.
Especially if they haven't seen it before. I will never forget when I took it round to my mate Ross's house. I went, "We're watching this today." But it's an M. Night. Yeah, we're going to watch it. And I spent the film, not watching the film, but watching
watching people's reactions to it, yeah.
Because, it is the most sublime experience in the world as people slowly but surely realise what's happening. The Happening. And in between that unfolding of stupidity, there's all these little shots of stupidity. And it's why I firmly believe he has to have done this on purpose. Deliberately. It has to be a parody.
Then again,
because
this is the guy who did
Lady in
the Water, which was totally earnest and is
utterly tone deaf,
jaw-dropping in its awfulness. Just jaw-droppingly narcissistic, egocentric. Amazing in that regard, as a window into it, what M. Night Shyamalan actually thinks.
Yeah.
Quite incredible. So you do find yourself wondering, well, the ego is big enough for him to think that this is genius,
Out of interest, have you experienced Devil?
Yeah, of course I have. It's terrible. It's hilarious.
It's
hilarious. Right. It's so bad. It's so bad. It makes no sense.
There is something about Devil which really... It got stuck in my head the first time I saw it. And I've never been able to leave it alone. and I can't find anybody ever talking about it, and it baffles my head. And it's the sequence where he drops the toast.
Then he's like talking about, oh, my mother says if the jam is on the floor, that means that the devil is. It's like, fuck off! What are you talking about? Where does this bullshit come from?
What he says is that the natural order of things will not work, right? So he drops the sandwich, and it lands with the jam and peanut butter on the floor, and he acts like that's weird, even though that's how it would land.
That's how it happens.
Normally. Yeah, it's the heavier side will land face first, but he acts like it's gone wrong, and that's proof of the devil.
Okay.
Nobody ever talks about this scene because it's up there with the Revenge of the Fallen, Give Me Your Face, for being unexplained, completely jarring to everything that happens before and after, and doesn't fit with anything else in the film.
At all. It's bonkers. It's just like...
It is.
What does it even mean? What is he trying to say? I haven't the foggiest. I'll be honest. It's just bafflingly tone deaf, weird, doesn't work, you know? Mm-hmm. There's the soul of a potentially good concept there, with the people trapped on the elevator. But
I think it's the grave of the soul of a decent concept.
But, makes no sense. But then again, that's M. Night Shyamalan, isn't it?
Yeah.
He did do a good film not too long ago, which is The Visit. You know, it's actually not half bad.
Well, I mean the one with the guy with the multiple personalities.
Is it
Split?
Yeah.
No, was it Split?
I can't
Split.
I can't remember what it's called, but yes, I know the one. It's actually a multiverse, isn't it? So like several of his films, like Unbreakable, feed into it, don't they?
And then Glass happened, and apparently don't ever watch Glass, and I'm not going to. But Split was a surprisingly good film. I mean, it's not a good representation of multiple personality syndrome.
No, it's not. Well,
at all.
Well, it's not even. I mean, it's dissociative personality syndrome, isn't it now? Or have has it changed again?
No, you're absolutely right. But I felt if I was going to say dissociative personality syndrome, people listening would probably just go, "I don't know."
You don't know what that is.
So I use the terminology that is more widely known because I'm part of the problem.
Yeah. I was going to say, I know it's changed. I didn't know if it changed again. You know, if it was something different.
No, it hasn't. No. The term multiple personality doesn't actually exist.
No, it's
and it never really has
did.
Either.
It's dissociative, isn't it? You know, that makes more sense. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I mean, there's other things that come into that as well, but we'll not get into that at the moment.
That's a rabbit hole. That's.
Yeah, if we start talking about mental health terminology, considering both of our jobs, we will be here for days.
We could start going back into like horror cinema, looking at Psycho and stuff like that. Oh, the representation of trans people in horror films traditionally. Oh my God, yeah. Mm-hmm. Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. You know. Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, not good
at all. What I like about, I mean, I'm not going to go too far into it, but what I like about The Silence of the Lambs is the way it tries to apologise for it. Mm-hmm. By getting Lecter to say, oh, he's not real, this character is not really transsexual, but he thinks he is, he tries to be. And you've got Starling saying, like, you know, according to psychological studies, transsexual people are very passive, there's no, like, real history of violence or anything like that. So it tries to apologise for having the trans serial killer trope, whilst also having the trans serial killer trope. it's the having your cake and eating it thing, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely, it is. And in this case, the cake is slightly unsettling, and you don't really want to take a bite. So let's put the cake over there.
Yeah.
I was going to say. I was going to say something else. It doesn't matter. I've forgotten now. Should we talk about Spectral Warhammer?
Yeah. Well, in a way, we kind of got onto it, though. I mean, there's stuff happening out there. I mean, we need to catch up, really. There's so much going on out there.
Absolutely.
We're on the edge of the Drukhari turning up there very soon. I can't wait for that. I mean, that's going to be, after the Necrons, that's going to be the marker of how the Xenos races turn out in Ninth Ed.
Yes, very much so. And I'm hoping that what we're going to get is a really big fancy book because
I hope it's good because the Drukhari are one of my favourites. I love the Drukhari. I want them to have the same treatment as the Necrons. I want to have my. They're going to have to do something with them because the Space Marines have gotten so much in all their incarnations. The Death Guard are just dominating at the moment. I got everywhere. Competitively in every respect, they're just insane. So the Drukhari need something. It's damage. They need damage and speed more than anything. They're glass cannon. They're glass cannon. They've always been glass cannon.
Absolutely, and they need to be more glass, more cannon.
Yeah, definitely.
The Drukhari have to be hit and run.
Yeah, just unfathomably fast. I want them to be the fastest army in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are even faster than their Craftworld cousins. They've got less in the way of heavy units than the Azuriani. So, yeah, they need it. They need the damage. I want them also to be aggressive,
Yeah,
More damage!
Something that's missing from them, I think, the raider mentality. The ability to do unseemly amount of wounds and then get out of there before anybody can
damage.
respond.
Their shooting and combat phases should be a nightmare. You don't want them to reach you. Ideally, that should be like the way you fight against them. You keep them from reaching you. But if they do, it's hell on earth. It's a meat grinder, That's the way it should really be. It's a difficult one to balance, though. I mean, armies like the Drukhari have always had difficulty in 40k, always.
Yeah, because what you're describing there is a horde army can take a hit but can't receive one, and the Drukhari cannot be a horde army.
They're not a horde army. They just don't work like that. They do not work like that. They're a very odd one. But I love them. Yeah. I love them to bits. I mean, my homunculi Covens are right up there. Some of my favourite armies in the game. Love them.
I noticed the other day that you were saying about really wanting to get into AOS as well.
Oh, well, AOS.
With some of the stuff that's coming.
Well, AOS is insane at the moment. It's there. The AOS game system, the universe, just so much exciting stuff is going on there at the moment. I mean, I like everything in it. In it. The stuff I didn't like in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I really like now. I
think it's easy to say that stuff that we didn't like when AOS kicked off has now become stuff that I've really got into.
Yeah, totally. Stuff that was a bit weak, a bit milksop before. Now it's like, oh god, the Lumineth. The Lumineth are a big revelation for me. I love them. Yeah, they're great.
Who would have seen that coming?
I think they're great. High Elves, my most... I wouldn't even say loathed, because I couldn't build up enough emotion to loathe them. I just didn't care, High Elves are
most apathetic
just so
race.
Boring. I mean, just so phenomenally boring to me. But I like them now. I really, and of course, I mean, the big thing that happened for me recently is that, my favourite of all the Chaos powers, Slaanesh, is now fully and completely represented in AOS, in a way that it's not in 40k at the moment. So, that's a big draw. That's a big draw for me. I mean, we had the release of the new Hedonists of Slaanesh Battle Tome and the massive new miniatures range. I mean, huge release. It was basically all of the mortals.
Yeah.
The part of the Slaanesh forces that I actually am more interested in, I'll be honest. Don't get me wrong, I love the Slaanesh Demons. Always love them. They're my favourites. They are my favourite demons. Keeper of Secrets, beautiful, absolutely stunning. The Demonettes. Yeah. I like the Demonettes because they're the most human of the demons. They've got all of these very human characteristics. Like, they're not monsters. They're patient. They're subtle. They talk to one another, They swap secrets. They're actually like messengers. So they're always busy. The Demonettes are always flitting around the mortal realms, like seeking out new inspirations and new experiences and ferreting out the secrets that they then take back to the keepers of secrets, and also whispering into the minds and hearts of mortals. They're the demons that do it more than any other, because that's their nature.
Did you ever read Zaragos?
Oh, bloody hell, a long time ago. That's an old piece of work.
It's also one of my favourite bits of Warhammer fiction.
I may have it around here somewhere still. Somewhere.
Which version? Have you got the 90s print or the 2000s print?
It would be the 90s print.
Yeah, good man.
That would be the
Ah,
90s print, yeah.
beautiful cover.
God.
Absolutely beautiful.
Long
Zaragos, Plague Demon, and Storm
That's
Riders.
right, yeah, all part of the same trilogy. Yeah, I've
The Orfeo trilogy,
I've got
yeah.
Plague Demon. I've definitely got Plague Demon.
Plague Demon's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. That was one of the first novels I bought from a Games Workshop. That was way before there was Black Library or anything like that.
Yeah, when they were being put out through Box Tree. Yeah.
Way, many moons back. Very
1991, I think that came out.
Yeah, very redolent of the ROC days, the Realms of Chaos days.
Very much so. Yeah, very, very much so. It's still to this day probably my favourite era, as much as I love the current era, and I do.
There's some good stuff happening now. There really is. There's some
yeah.
beautiful stuff happening at the moment. I'm loving the new idents, the Warhammer horror and crime stuff. I'm really liking that.
Well, I've got some crime and horror I want to talk about, actually.
Excellent.
Before we get on to our biggest topic, which
yes.
I know you're champing at the bit for.
Oh, yeah,
But the reason I mentioned Zaragos
I had a
is that,
horrible thing that I said. I was thinking I was going to say champing at the ball gag. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that because I'm above that.
Of course you are, yes. We're a classy
We are
establishment
above
here.
that on this show.
Yeah, we are balls deep in being classy.
Absolutely.
But the reason I mentioned Zaragos is that there's that sequence at the end where the wastes open up in the ballroom.
Oh,
And
God, yeah.
And you have those, the demonettes are just kind of in the background, just like either whispering into people's ears or licking their necks or getting people to talk at them.
Yeah, yeah.
I always loved the image because it's not a major cut and thrust of the plot. It's a thing that is happening in the background.
Yeah.
And it's like they appear and instantly get to work. And I've always loved that.
That is what they're like. I mean, that's how they've complexified them down the decades, you know, rather than them just being the foot soldiers of Slaanesh. They've become much more legitimately demonic, I suppose. They're the tempters, you know. They're like dark muses.
Yeah, very much so.
So they go off and they love mortals as well. They are one of the demons that absolutely adore mortals. They love their intrigues and their obsessions and their passions, and they absolutely adore them. You know, in a very dark way and sadistic way. I mean that is really emphasized by the Infernal Enrapturous. You know, one of the more recent. Heralds of Slaanesh. Now she's the musician one with the heartstring lyre.
Yes.
Which is made literally out of the body and soul of one of her victims. You know, they are attracted to inspired individuals. So they invisibly whisper into the minds of artists and writers and musicians, and goad them on into creating the greatest work they possibly can, to the point whereby they surrender everything. They lose their minds, they lose their lives, they lose everything, to the point whereby they literally give themselves body and soul to the effort and become part of it. They become part of the artwork. It's very cool. I love that stuff.
Speaking of demonic foot soldiers and horrible things, I've read some books since we last recorded. Actually, I've read some books since last time we recorded and talked about books. And I wanted to tell you about that because I've read 3 books. One is Ethereal Stern, The Heretic Saint.
Oh, very cool.
Which is actually a very good book. And it's a really interesting look at what happens to someone who has had a massive history before where 40k is now. Because she basically frozen in time, wakes up, and the Citrix Maledictum's taken place.
Yes, of course. So, like, the universe has completely changed.
Yep. And it's a really nice little throwback back and forth. It's a decent book, and I recommend it.
Yeah.
However...
Oh.
Sorry. I just wanted to get that one quickly out there. However, there's 2 other books that I read. George. One's a Warhammer Crime. One's a Warhammer Horror.
Yeah.
Right? The Warhammer Horror is The Deacon of Wounds.
The Deacon of Wounds. Yeah, I saw that. Is it good?
The Deacon of Wounds is horrible in the very best way.
Excellent.
It is the perfect example of the road to hell being paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Because you get to watch this one guy, this one high-ranking member of the Imperial Church, fall so far,
Good stuff.
so quickly,
Good stuff.
and he does it all by trying to do the right thing. It is amazing.
Sounds good.
And it has the sentence, "The mountain of flesh began to speak." And that's not like hyperbole. It's literally that big, and it is. It's oh god. There is a sequence where people are infected with a disease called the Grey Tears, right?
I was going to say, it's like Nurgle themed, isn't it, this one?
Oh, it's very Nurgle. And if there was ever any doubt in your mind that Nurgle loves his children, it is banished by this book. Grandfather Nurgle loves his children. And he will do everything he can to protect them.
Yeah, protect. You know, quote unquote.
Yeah. In a roundabout way. Oh god, it's when plague bearers start thanking people for being plague bearers. It's yeah. Oh god. But yeah, there is stuff in there which proper made my skin crawl. And when you find out what the final part of the Grey Tears is,
like the final manifestation.
It's I don't think a book has made my stomach lurch in a way that has. It really got me.
Yeah.
It like just. I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to ruin it for people, but there is a sequence that when the singing starts, you really start to question things about your own life. Like, what is real? Because that's really starting to get to me, and I can hear it. I can hear it. Right. And the other one is Flesh and Blood, which is a Warhammer crime by Guy Haley. The Deacon of Wounds, by the way, was by David Annandale.
David Annandale is one of is a good writer for Black Library. Yeah, he's good.
His horror stuff has been absolutely top-notch.
It's been pretty damn good, hasn't it?
Flesh and Steel, much like the other one I spoke about, whose name I have completely forgotten. What the hell was the Bloodlines? Is exactly what you think it is. There is a crime being committed. It's a very noirish take on trying to solve the crime. But unlike Bloodlines, which went down a route that really just made you sit there and go, I don't know who the good guys are now. This is more of a... the main character, he was an uphiver. And he kind of came down because he wanted to make more of his life.
Right.
Oh, that's what he says he wants to do. He wants to make more of his life than just being a rich, spoiled child. There is more to it than that, which gets opened up as it goes along. And it's actually a really tragic story of why he did it.
Right.
It's really quite sad. But he then ends up being partnered with a Adeptus Mechanicus detective, for want of a better term. She's like a planetary investigator.
Right.
And the pair of them are solving this crime, which leads into... There's like multitude of threads which are all dangling and they all start tying together, and it's a really good noir book. But the character work in this is fantastic.
Oh, it's good, yeah?
Yeah, the main character, he is just... When the book starts off, you think you've got a bead on what this is. This is I'm a hard-bitten type of guy.
Yeah, sort of your classic noir protagonist.
I drink far too much.
Yeah. So your classic, almost gumshoe, sort of like private detective in his little office, yeah.
And then you find out that he's basically a 40k private detective who has all of the money of one of the richest families in the... Right. On the planet.
Which is an odd twist. You don't often get that with that archetype.
No, and then you kind of get into the relationship he has with his family and why that's so strange and why he hates them so much.
Right.
And then you start to get into the fact that because he's this probator, there's like other rich families who are just like, no, you are dragging your heels on this because it would benefit your family. And it's all stuff like that. And at the center of it, there is like this awful crime,
Right,
which
so
is
like clashing motivations and sort of ambiguity, moral ambiguity, which again is very, very, very noir.
oh yeah. And then on top of that, you've got a serial killer servitor, which is like,
That's cool.
Yep, I'm all in for this.
Yeah,
This is great.
that
stuff.
sounds fun.
And then you actually go to a servitor factory where you get to find out how servitors are made.
Oh, that must
in
be fun.
Extreme detail.
That sounds unpleasant.
One of the interesting things is there's a guy in there who, our main character, arrested and sentenced for being a prostitution ringleader.
Right, okay.
Oh yeah, this book does not shy from nasty things, right? Yeah. And the punishment for that is to be made into a servitor.
Oh, okay.
Because he was removing other people's will, so his will be removed.
Yeah. I also imagine like it's just a case of like the Imperium needs servitors, so any excuse really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you get this wonderful sequence where he is pleading with the probator to try and to cut a deal.
Yeah.
So this sentence doesn't go through, and you're just sitting there going, "This is actually quite horrible. There is nothing good happening here. There's no winning whatsoever." But he gets servited.
Servited, yeah.
Servited, yeah. But yeah, they are two high recommendations because, Flesh and Steel, I devoured it. Absolutely. Deacon of Wounds, I didn't devour it because
It was horrible.
I felt if I devoured it, it was a lot. It was not a fight to get through, but you knew when you'd had enough.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's unpleasant
Very.
stuff, yeah.
Deacon of Wounds pulls no punches whatsoever. And once again, I didn't think I was going to get into the Warhammer crime stuff as much as I have.
Right. I mean, I'm reading at the moment one of the Warhammer horror novels, which is by one of the newer writers for the Black Library, The Reverie. Peter Fehervari.
Yep.
Really good. Thus far,
Yeah,
haven't finished it. I'm nowhere near finished it, but the writing is superb.
The Reverie does a lot that I like.
It's very top notch. The writing is spot on gorgeous at the moment.
Yeah.
It seems to be, I don't know, but it seems to be going into the horror, the innate horror of what the Space Marines are.
Yeah, not a million miles away.
That seems to be what it's going for.
Pardon me. I read that and the Oubliette at the same time.
Oh, right, okay.
One right after the other. So they kind of get a little bit mixed up in my head. But I remember the Reverie having some moments in it which, once again, were just, and close.
Yeah, it's psychologically very dark. It's very grim. It's also very good at exploring how the history of the 40k universe has become so mythologized.
Yes.
So there are like cults in the Imperium dedicated to the idea of Sanguinius. But very distorted ideas of what Sanguinius actually was.
Yeah, these almost like mythologicized versions of what actually happened that's then been taken right back through the grinder again and started from scratch. It's very odd.
It's interesting. It's fascinating.
It's clever.
Yeah, I like that element, and it's something that really needs to be explored a bit more in the fiction,
I think that's why I'm enjoying the crime stuff as much as I am, because it's so ground level. What is it like to be a citizen?
Right. This is something, because you get the God's Eye view as a hobbyist. Obviously, you can see the fact that there are like Chaos Space Marines and Chaos Gods and all this stuff. The people in the Imperium, by and large, don't even know this stuff exists.
No.
They don't know about the Horus Heresy, like, for example, by and large. And even when they do, it's this bowdlerized, censored version. They don't know, for example, that Horus was a Primarch.
No, he is just the big bad,
right.
The boogeyman.
He's the devil, essentially. He's the Satan figure. They don't know that, like, the Space Marines turned against the Emperor. Because that would be seditious, it would rock the foundations of this society. They don't know that the Chaos powers exist.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Oh, it's wonderful. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And the degree to which Imperial citizens do or do not know these things varies from world to world and system to system, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the idea... The one thing that I think's a failing when it comes to Warhammer Crime is that it's all set on one planet.
Right.
Gargantua.
That's a shame. That's a great shame.
It is. I understand why they've done it. It's so they can build up this sort of network of what this planet is and then tell the stories from it. But I find it a shame because it'd be interesting to see the different planets and how they deal with similar circumstances.
Well, what about crime on a ship? The culture of a ship. You know, how is crime? How does it manifest? You know, what does it mean, and how is it investigated?
Oh, can you imagine a murder mystery on a
So
black
much
ship?
fun. So much fun. Yeah, I'm just surprised that has never happened. You know.
Oh no, I really like that because a black ship takes years and years and years to get back to Earth. So you've got like I don't know, someone's killed. Let's think. It wouldn't be one of the guards. Definitely not one of the psychers because nobody would care.
No, nobody would give a toss.
Maybe,
you know.
Yeah, so maybe one of the Imperial Navy.
I mean, it would have to be one of the officers to make it.
Yeah.
To make it significant. Maybe one of the navigators or something. You know.
Oh yeah. That's it. So someone's killed the navigator of the ship. As a result, they can't re-enter the war.
Yeah.
And so it's trying to find out who killed him and why.
Right. What's the motivation for that? Yeah.
But you can't actually dock the ship anywhere to get a navigator until you find out.
So it has to be internal. The investigation has to be internal. Yeah, I love that idea. I really love that idea. Or within like the cultures that naturally arise upon Imperial vessels, because of course a lot of these vessels are so enormous that they have their own human subcultures on certain decks. You sometimes don't even know they're on a spaceship, you know? All they know is their function. Their function has become their culture, you know. So down the generations, they know that their purpose is to maintain the machines for the people from above, you know. And whenever one of like the upper crews descend, it's like a saint or an angel coming down. That shit I love.
Yeah,
love it.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's the sheer ridiculous ginormousness of 40k never really gets a good play with.
Doesn't, not enough, you know?
No.
And part of that is to do with the marketing, you know, there is this pressure to make it more like, you know, more like the game, so more war-based, you know, which is a shame because that's the least interesting stuff.
Weirdly enough, I think, though, that we're starting to see, well, we're not starting to see, we are moving away from that. I mean, you look at the last couple of years of books, you know, Dark Harvest was as far away from a war-torn action book as you could get.
Even like the Lords of Silence, it was primarily about like the Death Guard, these Death Guard characters on their vessels for the most part, you know. It was about the culture of what Nurgle worship is like, you know. That stuff I love. That stuff I'm well into.
I mean, Deacon of Wounds, it starts off because the planet is experiencing a 20-year drought. And so all the other cities are dying.
Right.
And they're all kind of moving back, like, all the world is trying to move into this one city.
Right.
Because it's the city that has any water left.
Yeah.
And they're running out quickly. And there's there's so much going on in there. Like, the original Deacon refuses to let anyone have the water because the water is for the Emperor's chosen. Yeah, that's...
interesting.
All I'm going to say there is the man drowns in bed. And it's brilliant. And it is. There are a few times, I think, reading a book where a guy gets his comeuppance and you are like, yep.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that happens quite a lot, actually. And it's not often the ostensible, like, bad guys, you know. It's often the Imperial characters who end up in that position.
Yeah, that is just a perfect way to end your life. Wonderful. So, yeah, that's the books I wanted to talk about because they're all recommendations which I, recommend. So.
Well, I'm definitely going to be reading Deacon of Wounds, definitely.
The only other thing that I've been doing this week is I've been pouring through the Soulbound RPG book.
Oh, yeah.
which I've had for a couple of weeks now, but not had the chance to get through it. I am desperate to play a game of this. I'm so desperate, in fact, that I've just pre-ordered the starter set for it. So it's going to be easy to learn rules and everything like that. Because there's some stuff in there I don't quite get.
Yeah, like mechanically.
So, yeah, it's like how I understand it is that the way that you're meant to play it is that people don't have their own hit points or wound points.
Oh, interesting.
You have a pool of wound points for the group.
Oh, as a party?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So you've got to be really careful about who's taking damage, because if somebody takes more damage than you expect, that could hurt everyone.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a very interesting dynamic. I mean, it makes you more simpatico as a group, doesn't it?
Yeah. That's the idea.
I've never
it's why
seen
you're all
that before.
soulbound. No, me neither. And it's a really interesting system that I really want to have a go at.
Difficult to abstract, though, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
the problem is, like, with the personal hit point systems, which are largely de rigueur, it means, like, when you have to absolutely role play the damage and you can't rely on the system, you can do it. Like, you know, when I play D&D, for example, if someone gets their throat slit in bed, I don't care how many hit points they've got, they're dead.
Yeah, you're done.
They're dead, you know? I don't even... that's just the way it is, you know? That would be a bit more difficult under that system, I imagine.
It would, but that's kind of the point of what they're doing with it. It's so the idea is that the group have been brought together and have been soulbound. So you are all connected until whatever you're doing is done.
Right. It's like a geese, yeah. It's like a binding contract almost.
Yeah. So it's either this gets done or you all die doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
I mean, you can play it with just normal hit points as well. But yeah, so I'm intrigued. What I'd like to do is, once I've got my head around it, is I'd like to try and get a couple of people together and maybe record a couple of games.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a go at that, actually. It sounds fun.
And the other thing, of course, is because I've been reading that and getting my head around an RPG system, what shouldn't I do, George? What should I never do when trying to get my head around a brand new RPG system?
No idea.
The answer is pre-order 2 other new RPG systems.
Yeah, of course.
So I pre-ordered the Talisman RPG game.
Oh.
Because I really want to have a go at that. And I've pre-ordered one called The Blades of Night, which is like nothing I've ever come across before, and I am really interested in how it works. So it's the best way to describe it is it's like Dishonored if Dishonored was in a world which had suffered a ghost apocalypse.
Right.
And you play a group of criminals who are trying to make a name for your whatever you want to call it, your criminal under hive world.
So it's got like a steampunky vibe.
Very steampunky, or very dieselpunky.
Yeah.
Very criminal orientated, very cinematic.
Which is often very fun in RPGs. It's always fun being like a
yeah.
thief or something, isn't it?
Well, I mean, one of the things I really want to take from that game and put into whatever game I do next is the flashback mechanic, which is you can, in the middle of doing something, like doing a scene, you can flash back to an earlier scene in order to give yourself bonuses.
Oh, now that is interesting.
And if you fail, obviously, you lose dice for the thing you're doing now.
And the consequences would presumably be quite dire, you know?
Much worse, yeah. I mean, it's the only game I've ever seen where you've got failure, success with consequences, success.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that.
One of the things I was listening to was that when these people played it, they tried to do a mesmerism. Did a flashback, didn't quite get it, and so they just squeaked in a success with consequences. And the consequence was that in a mesmerism, it created a feedback loop between him and the woman he was doing one with. And as a result, they started to get intertwined.
Oh.
Like their very thoughts became entwined with each other.
Yeah, it's like for role-playing purposes, that's loads of fun.
Yeah.
Loads of fun.
So it starts taking huge amounts of stress and anxiety points. It's like, this is like the best game I've ever heard.
That's kind of fun. I like that. I do
I'm
like
really
that.
into playing it. Really into. I'm desperate for an RPG.
I was going to say I haven't done like a role playing game for a long time. I would love to sit down and have a go. Just a D&D session would be great, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully at some point, James is up for the idea of running a couple of one shots for us.
Well, my friend Tom, friend of the show, who's been on the show a couple of times. He has written and has been, it's been on the boiler for a long time, a Call of Cthulhu game, which is based on Scooby-Doo. So it is, your characters are you turn up in a van outside the whatever, the mansion or whatever, and you are investigating the mystery and all of that stuff. So I think that sounds like incredible fun.
That sounds fantastic. Oh, man. Desperate for an RPG.
Yeah, definitely. And also for like a game of Warhammer 40k or AOS, to be honest, I would really love to sit down and have a go, just to test out some of the stuff that's out now. I mean, like Ninth Ed really hasn't had a proper run yet.
No, it's weird.
It is weird. It hasn't really been put through its paces yet. Although what I hear is very good.
Yeah.
You know,
it's fascinating that they can't do a proper FAQ and chapter approved for it this year because there isn't enough information to run off.
The feedback isn't there, is it? You can't really play the games, not to the degree and the frequency that they need.
No, it's very odd.
It is very, very strange indeed.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of getting onto the table and playing games, you've got
so annoying. It's so annoying. The battle tomes for AOS, we've said this before, they are just like they make the army books from Fantasy Battle look terrible by comparison. They
make the later ones. I mean,
they are just so comprehensive, aren't they? There's so much enthusiasm, there's so much artistry, there's so much inspiration, and sort of elephant in the room. This is the second Hedonists book in a very short span of time.
Yeah, and the second one in 2 years.
Right,
yeah.
which is odd. It's unusual. But I can see why it was done. I mean, it's very clear that I think that maybe they wanted this to be the full army.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they needed something to represent the new Keeper of Secrets, for example, and to also just have a Slaanesh army out there, because all the other gods are catered for, you know?
Absolutely.
So they did need something. Yeah. So the first book was, don't get me wrong, the first book was amazing to the point whereby they had to tone it down because it was winning everything. Beautiful battle tome, the last one, but it only dealt with the demon side of things. Unlike the other god-specific battle tomes, it really only had demons in it, with the oddest, like one or two mortal units. That was it. Fine. For many of us thought maybe that's how Slaanesh forces were going to manifest in the mortal realms. You know, that was just the way they were. But no, what they've done with the new battle tome is they balanced it. So it's got that wonderful split between mortal followers of Slaanesh and demonic followers of Slaanesh. And the way they've got around the fact that they haven't been present heretofore is in the background. So what they've said is, because of Slaanesh's absence, a lot of the god's mortal followers retreated from society and from the active areas of the mortal realms to, like the perimeter inimical, is that what they call it? The edges of the realms that are so extreme and so saturated in chaos energy. That's where the mortal followers of Slaanesh have been.
Right.
They've been out there doing whatever they do, trying to find Slaanesh, but also indulging themselves and all of that business.
Yeah.
But now, because Slaanesh is sort of free now, because the Slaanesh child has been born in Ulgish, now they've started to return. They refer to them throughout this book as carnivals. They're not armies, they're carnivals.
What?
Carnivals of Slaanesh, right.
Let me just sit back and enjoy that reference.
Right, they call them carnivals, which,
yes.
makes perfect sense, because the term carnival actually means beyond the flesh, it's of carnality,
Yeah.
It means...
So, I mean, how far back are you reaching for...
Yeah.
For
In
that?
terms of
I mean,
etymology, it's really cool. Carnival is the perfect description for an army of Slaanesh, because that's what it is. But I don't know about you, Adam. I've always been more fascinated by the mortal followers of the Chaos Powers anyway, because they're more ambiguous. I mean, the demons are great. The demons are really interesting, but they have no choice in what they are.
Yeah. They are a creature built for a purpose, and that purpose is why the creature
Exactly.
exists.
They don't really have... They do have a kind of autonomy, and actually Slaanesh demons, it seems, have more autonomy than most chaos gods demons do, because there are actually demons of Slaanesh who manifest the egotism and narcissism of Slaanesh to such a degree that they want to be Slaanesh, or they believe themselves to be superior to Slaanesh. They call themselves pretenders, they're pretenders to the throne, and they are in fact worshipped. It's great, isn't it? They are actually worshipped as gods in their own rights by some mortal tribes. It's kind of cool.
That's really cool.
It's kind of cool. I mean, what they've done is really expanded what the different, the way Slaanesh armies work is really interesting. You've got 3 different types, like in the last book. So you've got invaders, who are your classic Slaanesh forces, who are your mass carnivals of Slaanesh. So they enter into the mortal realms, and they're like your classic Slaanesh forces. They cause carnage on a mass scale, and it's very artistic and very sadistic, and then they move on and they just do it again. Then you've got your pretenders, which is what we were talking about before. They are champions of Slaanesh or demons of Slaanesh who believe themselves so superior that they want to ascend to the throne of Slaanesh. Not that they ever can, but they are very powerful. They're more powerful than most champions and demons of Slaanesh. And they are like little demigods, essentially. Because the background for the Pretenders points out that their self-belief is so powerful that they empower themselves. Because they're demons.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Belief empowers them, So their self-belief can sustain and empower them, where lesser demons would just drift into nothing. It's kind of...
You've got a self...
Right, they're self-perpetuating.
That's brilliant.
It's kind of cool, isn't it? It's kind of fun, isn't it? And then you've got your God-Seekers, and your God-Seekers... The God-Seekers are different now, because, of course, they used to be trying to find where Slaanesh is. Now they know where Slaanesh is. They know that the sort of the remnants of the original god are still entrapped in Ulgish, but now they are seeking the child of Slaanesh.
Right.
The overarching narrative now, because of course in the first Hedonists book, the narrative was that they were all trying to find their lost lord. There was a kind of feverish desperation to the followers of Slaanesh back then, because nobody knew where he was. The demons knew that he couldn't have been destroyed because they were still around. So, of course, Slaanesh had to still be alive after a sense. And it caused this incredible desperation amongst them. They needed to find him, It was wonderful. There was this feverish element to them. But now, in the present narrative, they know where Slaanesh is. They can't always reach him, because he, parts of him are still trapped in the original trap, the chains of paradox. But there's also now the Slaanesh child. So now the followers of Slaanesh are actually embarking on this grand pilgrimage across the realms. They're being drawn from the cities and from the civilizations of mortal realms to where the child lies. It's very cool. There's descriptions of how people in the mortal realms who have been living a double life for decades suddenly throw off their lives that they've built. They even murder their families and whatnot and go off in search of the Slaanesh child.
That's awesome.
It's really cool, isn't it? And not many of them make it. It's such a desperate trick that they have to make across the realms, and they often like fall prey to one another. Obviously, you know, they're if there's a follower of Slaanesh who's more obsessive, who's more impassioned, who's more fervent about it, then of course they fall prey to them, and they're quite happy for that to happen.
Because the most obsessive is the most passionate.
That's part of Slaanesh's religion, isn't it? They're more worthy. If they're more impassioned and more obsessive, they're more worthy. It's as simple as that. But there is
That's so cool.
There is, for me, the mortal followers of Slaanesh are the best thing ever. This is like this is the best Slaanesh forces have ever been in any game system. In terms of the miniatures, the aesthetics, the ethos of them, I love them all. They're just beautiful. The characters, the mortal characters. First of all, we've got the new character, the big centerpiece model, Glutos or Scolion, the Lord of Gluttony. This seems to be something they're doing with the Slaanesh followers. Each of the Slaanesh characters represents one of the 6 circles of Slaanesh's realm.
Right.
So they represent one of the sins of Slaanesh. So you've got Glutos or Scolion, who is obviously gluttony. He is this vast, bloated character, and his whole ethos is desperation. He has to sample new flavors and new textures, and the more exotic, the better, constantly. Because if he doesn't, his power fades. He starts to, it's like an addict, you know, he starts to get withdrawal symptoms. He is prey to a demonic patron who is driving him constantly across the mortal realms to savor the weirdest things imaginable. Things that should be inedible, he can actually eat, you know? It's really cool, isn't it? It's really fun.
That's brilliant.
Love it. Love him to bits. He's an excellent character, driven by absolute desperation, but also in love with what he is, like most Slaanesh followers are. He enjoys his existence very, 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 very much. It's just that there is beating underneath it this fervency and this need and this desperation that is very, very analogous to like an addict, you know?
Yeah.
What I also love about Glutos is that it's not really his fault. There's an element of tragedy to him. He was part of a starving family once upon a time, and he stole grain from a temple which he didn't realise was dedicated to Slaanesh.
Right.
And when he ate the enchanted grain, it opened him up to this demonic patron, which now drives him and torments him and, you know, drives him to devour and sample the weirdest, most bizarre, most extreme things imaginable.
That's wonderful.
It's really cool, isn't it? It is really, really cool. And nothing is beyond him. He is able to eat even, like, ephemeral things or immaterial things. Like, he could eat one of the Nighthaunt ghosts, for example.
Right, that is just ridiculous, and I love it to bits. Because now I really want to see him be the ghost eater.
Yeah, he could actually eat the immaterial stuff of a ghost or a soul, you know, like the abstract stuff. And to him, like, he could eat like a Templar of Sigmar, and he could taste the faith of them.
Yes.
You know, it would actually lend the meat a certain flavour.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's really fun, isn't it? And very like Catacross, he's got all of these hangers-on who sort of they basically they serve different functions.
I noticed there's a Chaos Halfling in there.
And they are very they just refer to it as the homunculus. So there's no reference to it being a halfling, but they kind of skirt around it. It's very clever. The mysterious creature that serves Glutos his repasts.
That's genius. I'm in love with that idea.
Much as I love Glutos, there's another that's my firm favourite. Firm favourite. And this is so weird. I didn't like him when he first went in his original incarnation. I wasn't that bothered about him. Sigfold, the Prince of Slaanesh, Sigfold the Magnificent. When he first came about, I was sort of like, he's a little dull. You know, way back in Fantasy Battle, I found him a little bit dull. Now, he's probably my favourite Slaanesh character ever. He represents, just as Glutos represents the circle of gluttony, Sigfold represents the circle of vainglory. He has become the High Prince of the Circle of Vainglory, and that's what he presides over in Slaanesh's realm. He is the Arch Messiah of Slaanesh in the mortal realms.
Bloody hell! Okay,
Pure narcissism.
Really jumped up.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. He's not just like, he's a champion of Slaanesh. No, he's the Arch Messiah of Slaanesh. The followers of Slaanesh flock to him. And they can't even bear to look at him a lot of the time because he's just so radiant and beautiful. He is suffused with the glory of Slaanesh. And where he walks, the followers of Slaanesh flock. He is amazing. Yeah. I love him to bits. And also, he's just so fucking arrogant. It's not even arrogance. It's not even like narcissism. He cannot conceive of anything standing in his way. He can't conceive of anything stopping him from doing what he wants to do. He's even like, he barged into the palace of Slaanesh after cutting his way through all the circles, just so he could entreat the demonic smith in Slaanesh's own forgeries to remake his sword.
That's very cool.
He's just like total arrogance, total narcissism.
He's just a giant prick.
Yeah, but in the most messianic way. He's like being so suffused with the favour of Slaanesh that he is now almost the representative of Slaanesh in the mortal realms, the high representative. The description of him even points out that he even looks like Slaanesh now. He has like a measure of Slaanesh's own allure in himself.
It's not a physical looks like Slaanesh, it's the feeling that you get when you look at him. Yeah. Okay, that's smart. I like that.
Mortals can't look at Sigfold without losing themselves to him.
That's a very cool
I love him. I think he's absolutely stunning. He's got such a big write-up as well. They've gone so far to rewrite the character to make him more interesting in the mortal realms. It's like 2 pages. It's absolutely massive. Yeah, I just love him to bits.
Does that make him then one of the biggest threats to the mortal realm?
Yeah, in a way.
From the sounds of it, he doesn't need to ever unsheath his sword for the majority of the time.
For the most part.
All he has to do is walk through population.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, he is just allure. He's the allure of the narcissist and the egotist. You know, that part of us that wants to be servile to beautiful things.
Yeah.
And that forgives beautiful people anything. That's him. That's Sigfold. And I also love the fact that his narcissism is so profound that it survived the ending of the old world. Yeah. You know, his soul basically survived. And because he failed, at that point, Slaanesh spurned him and left him out in the void. But you know who found him? Nagash. Nagash found him. And because Slaanesh hates Nagash and Nagash hates Slaanesh, he took Sigfold's soul and sealed it in a mirror so that whoever looked into it would see themselves and not Sigfold, and that would really annoy Sigfold.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, he's been in Shadespire since the beginning of the Mortal Realms. He's been inside Shadespire as a mirror, but it gets broken by some Caradron who go there, you know, and suddenly he's out. And his release dovetails with Slaanesh's own. So suddenly you have this reignited champion of Slaanesh. And because he you know, his arrogance was such, and his self-love, his narcissism was such that he survived the end of the world, you know. Slaanesh was like, actually, you know what? Yeah, you are my kind of champion. And so basically resurrected him and suffused him with all of his blessings. It's just so cool. I love him to bits. I love him to absolute bits. And his new sword is actually forged from the mirror, the shards of the mirror that contained him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's pretty cool. In terms of rules, he's very straightforward. He's oddly straightforward. He's a beat stick.
Right, okay.
Basically, one-on-one, there's very little that can take him. He can have a good go at pretty much anything. But he's very fragile.
Right, okay.
You want to be quite careful with him. He's not like, say, Nagash or Archaon, who can take a bit of a pounding. He's quite fragile. You want to be careful how you maneuver Zigfold. What you want to do is point him at the thing that you need to die.
Right.
That's how you work him. His sword, his sword play is such that you can't... You know how there's this rule in AOS of negating wounds?
Yes.
So you have your normal saves, and then you have like extra saves that can negate wounds in some special rules. Any wound caused by Zigfold cannot be negated.
Bloody
He's
hell,
the only
okay.
character in the game that has a rule like that.
I think he is.
The only one that can negate negations.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he's great.
Love
him.
I want to say that there's a set of attacks Nagash can do that can't be negated as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to check.
And he always fights first as well. Zigfold always fights first because, of course, people can't bring themselves to strike against him.
Yeah.
Which is just cool. I love him. I love him to bits. He is my favourite character in AOS by a mile at this point.
I've got a couple of questions about the Hedonists book, which I'm really interested in, and it's up to you if you want to.
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead.
So to start off, does the Slaaneshi child get any kind of concrete?
No, we know it's referred to all the way through, but it's a grand mystery. Okay. No one really knows what it is.
Yeah.
Even the followers of Slaanesh don't know what it is. What was Slaanesh up to?
Yeah.
It seems to be like an essential core of Slaanesh itself. It's almost like Slaanesh is trying to rebirth itself,
Away from its trapped body.
It's very strange, but I don't know.
No, okay.
We really don't know. All we know is that it's in this massive valley in Ulgish, so in the midway point between Heish and Ulgu, and it is thronged by just masses of the Hedonists, like thousands of them. That's all we really know about it, and it's swelling and it's speaking to them.
Okay.
It's singing to them and it's telling them things. Don't know what though.
Right. I'm fascinated into what this could be.
Yeah, me too. It's obviously it's a plot point.
Yeah, big time.
It's clear that something is going to happen with this thing, probably through the Broken Realms books. That would be my guess.
Do you think the final Broken Realms book is going to be Broken Realms, whatever?
Possibly.
Child or
possibly.
Whatever it ends up being named.
I mean, I don't know. The fact there are descriptions of it that make me think it's going to be a model,
right?
At some point, because it's so it just sounds like it could be. Yeah, so is it going to be like an avatar of Slaanesh in the mortal realms, a bit like the avatars of Inead, in 40k? I don't know.
Now that's something that we've talked about quite a lot. That. We might start seeing the gods get onto the table at some point.
Yeah, in some weird fragmented fashion. I honestly don't know. It's so weird. But, obviously now you have all of these wonderful mortal units in your game, which are, for me, just the jam. I love them. The Lord of Pain, who we saw in the Diachasm box set, is a Cenobite.
Yep.
He's essentially a Cenobite. He is effectively a Slaanesh champion who has given himself up to sublime pain and pleasure. There's very little else to him. He's a lot of fun. I love him.
He is just Cenobite through and through.
Yeah, he's a Cenobite. They're difficult to shift because they like being hurt.
Yep,
They have a rule called share the pain. So what it allows them to do is negate mortal wounds and then inflict those mortal wounds on whoever tried to inflict them.
Oh, sugar,
which is
that's
rather
nasty.
lovely. Yeah. Rather lovely. You know, and it's the most, like, when you really stop and look at the miniature, it's the most, like, near-the-knuckle ribald miniature they've done for Slaanesh for a while. Mm-hmm. It's got, like, the single breast of Slaanesh. It's got, like, the leathers and the straps and the bared legs and whatnot of old Slaanesh miniatures. It's quite suggestive. Which a lot of these new miniatures actually are, you know, which I like. Like the Bliss Barb, for example, the archers. I'm gonna get a horde of these. First of all, I love the influences that have gone into them. The whole Arabic thing, the Arabian Nights thing that's going on with them.
Yeah, it's really
Love it.
I would never have thought of doing
I wouldn't
that.
have either for but it fits, doesn't it?
Perfectly.
Doesn't it
Absolutely
fit so
perfectly.
well? I just, you know, having even the 1001 Arabian Nights are infamous for being really erotic stories, you know.
Yes,
and
yes.
Of course it makes sense. Of course it fits for Slaanesh, but I never cottoned.
No.
But it works, and these miniatures are gorgeous. The Bliss Barb, my favourite are the Bliss Barb Seekers, the ones that are on the Steeds of Slaanesh.
Yes, yeah, they are fantastic designs.
So dynamic. I love them. I love them to bits. The ones on foot are great too. I want hordes of them. They're exactly what you'd expect from Slaanesh. Fast, very light. Oh my god, they're going to melt. You know, but they're quick.
Yeah.
And
it's exactly what you were saying about the Drakari earlier on.
Yeah. This is how the Drakari should be. And also, they're unusual because they can put out a lot of firepower. They're very unusual. They can run and shoot at the same time, which not much in AOS can. So these guys are really maneuverable. And they have the what people call on the internet the exploding wounds thing, which everything in Hedonists does. Whenever you roll a 6 to hit, you roll an extra dice. So you get a big horde of these guys running around, and they put out the pain at long range.
Right.
It's really good fun, isn't it? They're counted as like they are the ones who they haven't only just started on their path into Slaanesh worship, but they're the ones that haven't yet found a particular path.
Right, okay.
To obsess over and to dedicate themselves to. They're kind of like the newer initiates, if you like.
Yeah, the neophytes.
Yeah, they're the neophytes. That's exactly what they are. But no less deadly for that, obviously, and no less into it, you know? They're having a lot of fun. What I love is like how mythological they've made them too. Like the Bliss Barb Seekers, the ones on the exalted steeds, they have to actually go into the realm of Slaanesh and coax a steed. They have to subdue it through various esoteric means before it will allow them to ride it.
You've got the 12 tasks of Slaanesh to do, basically. Yeah.
Exactly that, yeah.
That's smart. Because it used to be they were gifted.
They're not gifted now. You have to take them.
That's you may want to change your phrasing when it comes
actually
to Slaanesh.
for Slaanesh, yeah, absolutely. Then you've got other really unusual additions as well, like the Shard Speakers, the Wizards, which are amazing. I mean, there's this whole imagery throughout the book of mirrors. Mirrors are a big thing for Slaanesh now. But your Shard Speakers are essentially your mortal wizards of Slaanesh. And again, I love them. I want tons of them. Your Shard Speakers, they can see into the hearts of mortal men and women, essentially. They can see every dark, forbidden yearning and urge that you have, and they can reflect it back at you with that mirror. it's a case of I know what nobody else knows. Mm-hmm. It's really dark and really unpleasant, you know.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
I love it. They've also got this really weird thing that's related to it's related to their origins in Ulgu. They can actually summon these shadow demons around themselves that protect them and inveigle them. It's really cool. I love it.
See, that sounds like something that you'd expect from the whatever the Shadow Elves are called.
Yeah, the Umbranesh.
Umbraneth, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a really hard word to stick in my brain.
Oh, the Umbraneth. The Umbraneth. Yeah, that's
Umbraneth. Yeah. You'd expect something like that, so I wonder if there's going to be some crossover between the Hedonists and the Umbraneth.
Possibly. There is this thing where a lot of them do hail from either Heish or Ulgu. For some reason.
Okay.
A lot of the mortal Hedonites derive from Heish or Ulgu for some reason.
Is that because Slaanesh is trapped in between
I
them
think it's probably that.
The loudest noise, so to speak.
And also, I mean, there's just like a natural overlap between Slaanesh's aspects and those two realms. I mean, in Ulgu, you've got the whole notion of like forbidden secrets and whatnot, which is very Slaanesh. And in Heish, you have the extremity of passion and inspiration and whatnot. So that's very Slaanesh as well.
Not only that, you had the Lumineth falling to obsession.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
That's bloody hell. I'd never considered that. That's really smart.
Yeah, it is very cool, isn't it?
So did the Lumineth start falling to obsession because Slaanesh was so near?
Who knows, eh? Who knows?
Oh!
I mean, what I also love about the Shard Speakers is when you look at them, when you look at the miniature, they don't necessarily immediately strike you as Slaaneshi. It's when you read about them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, ooh, they're nasty. You know, I love them. I love them to bits. They've done such good work. I mean, the thing I think that you're going to love more than anything, especially because you've got a thing for these guys anyway, are the Slaangor.
Oh, yes.
The Slaangor they've made heavily mythological. So they've got multiple different origins. Some of the stories tell of like it's almost like the Flesh Eater Court. So there's stories of an order of pure knights who gave in to just an instant of pride, just this one moment of pride, and that was all Slaanesh needed.
That was the crack in the armour for him to get in.
To seep in and twist and transform them. So when they woke up the next day, they'd been transformed into these bestial effigies. That's one of the origins. The other one is that they arise from the writhing corpses that occur in Slake phrase. So when the beast men, followers of Slaanesh, hold their bacchanals in the woods, and all the mortal followers come to writhe around the fires and whatnot, and basically kill themselves through excess. The Slaangor are the children that result from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot more imaginative and a lot darker.
It's a bit nasty, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit like...
Because I remember how they used to be was they were the offspring betwixt man and beast.
That's it, yeah.
And it just this really simple, straight down the line, unpleasant, but that idea takes it and notches it up a couple of levels.
It's pretty unpleasant. Fiend bloods rise fully formed from the heaps of writhing bodies piled around the herdstones in the aftermath of a Slake phrase most bloodthirsty bacchanals. Yeah.
It's a overnight they grow from fetus to maturity, bursting out
they
of bodies.
Are born in just hedonistic excess. But you know what I also love? They've done everything in their power to tie each of the units to the aspects of Slaanesh. So the Slaangor represent the most unrestrained bestial hedonism.
Yeah, the most primal urge.
Yeah, they are rapine, cannibalistic. I mean, to be killed by a Slaangor would be horrible, because the things they would do to you would be unbelievable.
And it wouldn't be a quick death.
No, it wouldn't. It even goes so far as to point out that when they're not like in the midst of like the rush of battle, and where they can really explode and indulge themselves, they wander around in this stupor, and they have to be led by the mortal Hedonites, who love them, absolutely love them. They bedeck them in like silks and paint their bodies and whatnot. It's
My God,
good fun.
Once again, you're tying back to really early ideas and concepts, and they've just been taken and
emphasized to like
not just emphasized but also merged.
Yeah.
So I mean, third ed, you had the entire thing of the beastmen were often cared for by parents, just kept secret.
Right.
And in the secret, they would be very well treated. They would be almost held as a place of revelry. Given the finest clothes, given the finest food, as almost like an apology for being kept secret.
Right.
But then you tie that into the lethargy that like second ed beastmen, or third, I suppose third and fourth beastmen, where when they weren't in battle, they were lethargic and would sleep for days and just be these like lazy hordes that didn't really do anything until battle presented
That's
itself.
exactly what these guys are. I mean, they can't function except in extremes. They just can't function. It's like the way the book describes it is it's like a fugue. There's
not enough internal stimulation taking place for them to pay attention.
But the other Hedonites love them, apparently, because they regard them as like children of Slaanesh. You know, they bedeck them and they ornament them and they take care of them.
I love it.
It's amazing. I love every element of it. I mean, you've got now your heavier, obviously, Slaanesh mortals, your equivalent of Chaos Warriors, the Myrmidesh Pain Bringers, and they're very cool as well. Unusual for a Slaanesh, followers of Slaanesh. They remind me, in terms of their background, of the Incubi from the Drukhari.
Okay.
Very like them. They are temples of warriors from around the realms, apparently. And they have, in order to become a Myrmidesh Painbringer, you need to dedicate yourself to one path, which is the bringing of the sadistic death.
Okay.
That's it. You can't indulge in
right.
anything else. So to become a Myrmidesh Painbringer, a mortal has to go through these challenges where they are exposed to the body-tearing, mind-destroying pleasures of the other sins of Slaanesh, and they have to deny them.
That's... wow. So once again, the idea of the tasks comes in.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And whereas, like, the way they describe the Myrmidesh is great. You know how the rest of the carnival of Slaanesh is this whooping, singing, chaotic mass. The Myrmidesh stand silent and still until the perfect victim presents themselves. And then they explode into what is like a dance, where they don't kill you slowly. They bleed you by 1,000 cuts. They make sure they're only interested in the most artistic, the most sadistic death imaginable.
That's absolutely brilliant. I mean, you know, to tie it back into the Arabian Nights thing, there's it sounds very much like those campfire stories that they get told, doesn't it? That campfire story is the wrong word for it, but you know those dark fairy tales, I suppose would be a better word. The horror of them. The fact that you will not die slowly is...
yeah, it's really unpleasant and brilliant. I mean, it fits for the warrior cast of Slaanesh. It fits so well. It's that notion of obsession again.
Yes.
They've dedicated themselves to a single obsession and pursue it to the point whereby they lose all sense of self. That's a big thing amongst the Painbringers. That's why they wear those helmets.
Right.
They have to surrender themselves to it, to the pursuit, to the obsession, and to the art, and forget who they are.
There's no coming back from it. You are... it's much like how the Chaos Warriors were then, isn't it? Originally,
Very much, but with a Slaaneshi bent. Are the ones who do fail in that, the ones who like retain some sense of ego, become the Simbarish, the twin souls, the ones who invite the demons of Slaanesh to possess them.
Right.
They are the ones who can't give up their ego. In fact, they come to believe themselves to be the very epitome of what they're doing. That's why the Simbarish don't wear helmets. They want to show who they are.
Yes, the personality is too strong.
Yep.
The ego is too large.
That's it.
You must see me as I kill you.
That's it. They basically abandoned the sort of mono-obsessive blade cult that they were dedicated to, and they set out on their own. They're more like Zigfold, you know?
Yeah. I was going to say, are they the chosen of Sigvald? By any
Pretty
chance?
much. I imagine they and Zigfold would get on rather well. And they do invite the demons of Slaanesh to possess them, you know, because they believe that they are powerful enough to subdue the demon and bend it to their will. It's not always the case, but some of them do manage it. The champions, they're called ego pomps. It's great, isn't it? It's a play on Psychopomp, obviously, you know. And they are the ones who have managed to gain this balance with the demon inside of themselves, whereby the demon and the psyche have merged, so they become one entity. It's brilliant. It's just amazing.
Fantastic stuff.
The background for each of these mortal units is just it's the best. I mean, I'm biased because I love Slaanesh and I love Slaanesh worship, but for me, they have the best background of any of the mortal followers of Chaos we've had thus far.
It sounds a lot like they took what they've hinted at in earlier Chaos Power books and just nailed everything to the wall.
They've gone hard for this. It's very clear from reading the book that they really wanted this book to be like, they wanted people to just fall in love with it and with the miniatures range. It's so good. Most of the rules are the same as they were. They've just refined a few things, you know, added a few things in to make them a bit more interesting and to balance them out with the mortal units. But it's mostly additions. Okay. It's mostly additions and refinements. I just love everything about it. I love everything about it. It's turned me on to AOS like big style.
So, if I asked then, what would be your most favourite and least favourite parts of the book?
Oh God, that's a very good question. My most favourite is just the background. Yeah. I love every element of the background in this. I think they have expanded the Hedonites beautifully, and also, obviously, they've expanded the background generally to incorporate all the new stuff, which is just wonderful. Least favourite part? Don't know. I'm enjoying reading it so much. I would have liked a little bit more background on the Slaanesh child, maybe. On what that means for the status of Slaanesh itself.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask. So, with the release of this book, is Slaanesh free, or is he still in the midway point? There's a name for it, and I can't think.
The median. He's sort of in between, isn't he? Pass. It's kept deliberately vague. He's broken the big chain, basically, the one that was keeping him in place. But with the release of the Slaanesh child, he's much diminished. Okay. Most of his power has gone into that. So what that means, I don't know. It's left up in the air.
Right, so the question is, are they leaving it up in the air in order to do something in the Broken Realms, or is it left up in the air so they've got something to come back to way down the line?
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a new dynamic that Slaanesh followers have. And you know what? This is another thing. I spoke to Rowan Fortune recently on a previous podcast about this. The Slaanesh followers and Slaanesh itself is the most narratively dynamic of the Chaos Powers now in AOS, because Slaanesh has had a story arc, whereas the others haven't. you know, they've been just sort of like, they're a bit monolithic, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
They could do with doing something like the imprisonment of Slaanesh and his eventual emancipation for all the Chaos Powers. Do a story arc for each one of them to make them more dynamic, to make them more interesting. Narratively, there's nothing like Slaanesh and its followers amongst the Chaos Powers.
No, there isn't. Because it's such a huge removal of one of the cornerstones of Warhammer.
Right.
You know, it makes it very odd to think that he's been missing in action and now is slowly but surely making a return.
Yeah, and I love the fact that because they really wanted to keep the dynamism of the Slaanesh forces, they haven't entirely freed him. You know, they've kept it going so that wonderful freneticism is still there, that kinetic quality of the Slaanesh followers, which suits them so well. They're not still. You know, they're searching, they're seeking, they're on these grand pilgrimages throughout the realms. And there's a great sense throughout this book that Slaanesh worship is rising throughout the mortal realms. It is stirring to the point whereby entire cities have fallen to Slaanesh worship, you know?
So Sigfield knocked on the door then.
Or Glutos.
Hello.
You know, I don't know which is worse, to be honest.
I suppose there's less chance of Sigvald eating your children.
Yeah, but the thing is, Zigfold would probably do a lot worse to them, to be honest.
That's true.
You know,
that's true. They would live to see it.
Yeah, you don't want to know what Zigfold would do to them. You have to bear in mind, you know, he was involved with his sister at one point.
He was, yes.
Way back when. And he ate his own father.
Yep. I like how cheerfully you said that.
He did. He was actually born of incest, you know.
Yep,
which is really fascinating.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I didn't think they'd go to that. And that's a very mythological thing for a character like Zigfold. Isn't it? That echoes actual certain characters from like Greek mythology who were born of the same situation.
Yeah. It's it's the entire basis for the Minotaur in one version.
Yes,
of the myth,
yeah. It's interesting. I love all that. I love all that stuff. It's heavily mythological. It's my favourite book from AOS thus far. You know, I think it's a stunner. I think they've done magnificently with this book.
You've got me thinking actually about the other Chaos Gods and how they they need that narrative dynamism.
They could do with a little bit of something. They could do with like a story arc, you know?
I was just thinking, Nurgle had it at the very beginning, didn't
with
he?
Alariel and everything.
Yeah,
he
it
did.
just wasn't to this extent.
But it wasn't like, it didn't become a defining aspect of him, unfortunately.
No.
It was just like a thing that happened, you know? I really want them to do like campaigns, you know, for something dramatic to happen, you know? So for one of the Chaos Powers maybe to fall from their place or to embark on some, I don't know, grand quest or something, for them to be characters.
Well, we know how that's going to happen. It's going to be Slaanesh will knock the Horned Rat out of place, which annoys me because they've done nothing with the Horned Rat being on the in the Pantheon.
It's a shame. They could have done a little bit more with that.
Yeah. It looks like that time's coming to an end.
I think so.
Future.
I think the Horned Rat's going back to his original place.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that he and Hashut and Malice all get together and they form their own Chaos Powers. Their own clubhouse with, no corn allowed written on the front. But yeah, I agree. But the question is, how do you do it? With Slaanesh, you could... There was almost like a built-in way of doing that. Khorne's
you can't... difficult again because he's kind of monolithic.
Yeah, all you'd have to do is have no more violence, and then that kills your entire system.
The way of leading Khorne around the Reeking is the way Slaanesh does it, actually, because Slaanesh has to trick Khorne at one point into helping shatter one of the Chains of Paradox.
Right.
One of the Chains of Paradox requires the creature that hates Khorne the most, that hates Slaanesh the most, to help in his freedom. Okay. And the way Slaanesh does it is by baiting Khorne. So he basically sends one of his infernal enrapturesses to murder, Karanak, the three-headed dog. He gets this infernal enrapturess to lead Karanak all around the Reeking in this grand game, and then the infernal enrapturess defeats Karanak, which Khorne does not like. Gets up out of his throne for the first time in millennia, and basically shrieks across the mortal realms. And Slaanesh entwines himself in the chain of paradox, and the scream reaches him and shatters it.
That's cool.
It's very cool,
That's
isn't it?
Very cool.
It's very, very cool indeed. I love all that stuff. I really love that stuff.
I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult because all you have to do is tie it into something like the endless spells.
Well, Tzeentch is kind of paradoxical anyway by his very nature. The thing is, Tzeentch doesn't mind Slaanesh's freedoms. Tzeentch, orchestrated the capture of Slaanesh anyway, and seems to be orchestrating his freedom as well. There's a grander plan at work here.
Do you know what you could do? Right, how Slaanesh finally gets out. He tricks Tzeentch. No, actually, you could probably do it with Khorne. He tricks Khorne to swap places with him.
Oh God, that'd be great.
You do an atlas.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Some of the one of the descriptions of the paradoxical trap that the elves wrought points out that any of the other chaos powers that were captured by it, they would be captured permanently. Right. They wouldn't be able to get out.
Oh, that's where the horned rat's going, isn't it?
But Slaanesh is such that he can turn any situation to his advantage, He actually, when he's initially captured, shrieks in rage, but then he starts writhing in pleasure because it's new. It's a new state, He's one of the most subtle powers amongst the Chaos Gods. Yes. So if Khorne had been captured or Nurgle, that would be it for them. They would be there forever. But because it's Slaanesh, not so much.
Horned rat's going in the chains, isn't he?
Maybe.
But I was thinking that's how you do it. You maybe like a weakened version so that they can get back out again. But he tricks one of the other powers into swapping places
taking
with
his
him.
place. Yeah, that would be very interesting.
And that's how you then get the narrative of Khorne or something like that.
Well, I do know that all of the others are slightly afraid of him. Because it's from that time at the beginning of the Mortal Realms when he overshadowed them all.
Yes.
When he was bloated on all the elven souls from the old world. He was so powerful back then. He basically completely overbalanced the Chaos Pantheon.
Well, he's got the ability and the possibility to be the single most powerful Chaos God.
Yes, he does. Unlike the others, who need to maintain the balance. He actually, the way they've subtly rewritten Slaanesh for AOS, he is no longer just the god of desire.
No.
Desire used to be the core of Slaanesh, but that actually isn't true anymore. He is now the god of all emotions and all experiences, and it's the degree and excess to which they're experienced and felt that empowers him.
Yes.
They go to great pains to pointing out that he's not the god of any single one thing, it's the degree that empowers Slaanesh. So all of the other chaos powers also empower Slaanesh. They can't help it.
Into him. Yeah.
There's overlap between them all because they're all born of certain kinds of obsession. And obsession is Slaanesh's realm.
Yep, exactly.
It's very cool.
So, the blood secutors of Khorne when they take the pride in murder feeds Slaanesh.
It feeds Slaanesh.
The Nurgle followers create a decent plague that does some serious damage to a city.
And they take pleasure in it.
Slaanesh. That level of obsession in learning how to do these things. In fact, the level of obsession it takes to get into the echelons of a cult. That's feeding Slaanesh. Oh,
if you take any kind of satisfaction or pleasure or delight in anything, if you obsessively dedicate yourself to anything, and that can come in the form of inspiration, it can be art, it can be love, it can be academia, you are to a degree feeding Slaanesh. There's not much you can do to escape it.
No. That's insanity. You cannot win.
Yeah.
And yet, the other powers, as you said, they fear him slightly, but you get outside of those powers. look to Sigmar, look to the Duradin. They're all thinking of Slaanesh as being the also ran. It's not a problem. You just ignore them.
But not so much, it seems.
No.
Not so much. It really is on the rise. Slaanesh worship is it's building in the mortal realms at the moment. It seems like Slaanesh is going to have an ascendance very soon.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
I
the
would
question.
like? I would love it if they actually do unbalance the Chaos Pantheon a bit and they put him on top instead of Khorne.
Oh, yeah.
That would make me so happy.
Because it would then be the absolute reverse of what everyone was saying at the beginning of AOS, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be the reverse of how it's been since the beginning of Chaos, since like way back in the
true,
ROC days. Khorne has always been the most powerful of the Pantheon. Always. Always. Then you've got Tzeentch, then you've got Nurgle, then you've got Slaanesh. It varies, there have been periods. There was a period in the mortal realms where Tzeentch was the preeminent power.
There was, yeah.
And then the other Chaos powers teamed up and toppled him, basically.
Gave him a good kicking.
Nurgle's nature is such that sometimes he does wax to overshadow all the others. Like a plague, like a pandemic, and then it wanes again. So that's just his nature. That's what he does. But Khorne is generally ranked as the preeminent chaos power. Wouldn't it be great if that dynamic changes?
Absolutely. If, for whatever reason, Khorne dropped down a few.
I'd love that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it does look like, from what we're seeing, it does look like they are going for that very soon. Not just like they're unbalancing the Pantheon, so we know something's going to happen with the Elven Pantheons. Because it already is happening. Morothai's Ascension has unbalanced it completely. Teclis, what is going on with him? We know he's going after Nagash.
He's dead, so.
We know he's going after Nagash, So...
Oh, man, how good would it be, right, if Teclis goes after Nagash, and Nagash shows Teclis, the actual Teclis, which is dead.
That'd be great fun, wouldn't it?
Because I firmly believe Teclis is dead.
But,
and Tyrion's just walking around with, the memory of him.
We've got, suggestions of what's going to happen to the Undead Pantheon, don't we?
We do. It looks like there's going to be a shattering of some description.
Really looks like the Undead forces are going to break up. And what does that mean for Nagash?
I think it means Nagash is going to sleepy.
Is he going to get toppled? Wouldn't that be great?
I don't think he'll get toppled. What I think he'll do is get diminished.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he won't be the arch overlord of all undead. I mean, that'd be so cool.
I think it depends on what your definition of that would be. Because if he stays in the underworld and he, gets pushed back or beaten back or whatever, he gets diminished in some description. Because we know that the vampires are coming.
The Soul Blight, yeah.
Yeah. So if the Soul Blight become the undead in... I don't know how to put it. The undead in life, shall we say.
Yeah.
You get the vampire kingdoms start springing up around Ulgu and Gur and places like that. Probably not Gur, because I imagine Gur having a lot of sunshine. But they become the lords of the undead in the mortal realms, whilst Nagash stays the lord of the dead of the dead.
Yeah. Because we know, the Bone Rattle legions as well are getting their own. It seems like they may be getting their own book.
It looks that way, yeah. It looks like we're getting a whole new host of proper skeletons.
Proper skeletons, proper zombies. I'm going to assume that there will be other stuff with that. Necromancers.
I'm hoping so, because I'll let you into a secret here. Outside of Hemric Kimmler, I don't think there's ever been a good necromancer.
There has never been a decent necromancer. Not ever.
Did I call him Kremler? Kremler. Kemmler.
Kemmler's the only one. Kemmler's the only one. All of the necromancer miniatures have been too over the top or not enough,
Yeah, there's never been a really good one. Just a shitty old man with a couple of skulls. That's all I want. That's all I want for a necromancer. I just want just a little tramp guy with a couple of skulls and a hat.
Or that guy from the Cursed City.
Absolutely. God damn it.
What's it called? Gorslav? Is it something like that?
Yeah, Gorslav.
Oh,
yeah.
Make them
with
like
a slight
him.
Russian accent, it makes a lot of sense.
Make them like him.
Gorslav.
like grave diggers and yes, make them like him.
At some point, I've written a little short story about Gorslav, and I do intend to do a reading of it at some point. I just want to wait till Curse City comes out, so I know I've got nothing horribly wrong.
He looks like a design from a like a Pan's Labyrinth film, something by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, Cursed City! Like, I've never felt so intimidated by a box before.
It looks amazing.
It does. I want the book.
I've got to get it. Yeah, and also, I mean, that new guy that just came out that we just saw the preview for, the new vampire, the Lord of Rats.
Yeah, the Prince of Rats. Yeah,
is from a different bloodline.
A new
Soulblight bloodline. Does that mean that there are others?
It looks that way.
So maybe what we're going to see is the sundering of the traditional bloodlines.
Yeah, because I mean the idea of the Lamian bloodline and the
von Karstein,
what was the third one?
The Necrarch, the Blood Dragons, and the other one, the Strigoi.
Strigoi, that's the one. That's what I was trying to think of. I can see them being removed and replaced because that doesn't make a huge amount of sense in the Immortal Realms.
Right.
Lamia doesn't exist. There's only one von Karsten, and he's not the great one.
No.
I mean, can you imagine if Vlad and Isabella turned back
Please bring Vlad back. Yeah, I'd be so ecstatic by that. You've got to bring them both back. If you're going to bring them back, you've got to bring them both back. I like Manfred. I think Manfred's pretty cool. Well, you've got to give him credit. He destroyed the old world. It's his fault. He betrayed Nagash, he betrayed, and he was willing to destroy the world just to, snub his nose at Nagash.
Yeah, just to get one up over Nagash.
I mean, he's got some balls, that guy.
Big, shiny brass balls.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, Manfred's great. I will never say Manfred isn't great, but he's not Isabella and Vlad.
No, Vlad and Isabella have got a certain romance about them. They're Dracula. It's Dracula. It's your classic Dracula archetype, isn't it?
But not only that, you've got the romance part of it, but they're actually good people. Yeah, that's the weirdest thing about it.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, they're evil, blood-sucking, murderous creatures of the night. But aside from that, they're honourable. They do exactly what they say.
There is a certain nobility, isn't there? And, Vlad, I guess I'll tell you this, Vlad kept Sylvania safe.
He did.
Would not dare commit a crime in Sylvania when Vlad was on the throne. You wouldn't dare.
Well, it's stuff like he promised to keep everybody safe and succeeded. Granted, that was so he could feast upon them when he needed to, but he kept his word.
He did, yep.
I love the story about the bandits that tried to take over, and he just walked into the middle of the town square at midnight, and then walked away again at 1 o'clock, and there was never a problem with bandits again.
Yep.
And it's just wonderful stuff like that.
You don't mess.
Do you know what would be quite good? If they brought back Vlad and Isabella, but they cannot be taken in the same army.
Oh, well, so
they're constantly on the search for each other.
Yeah, that would be great fun. I mean, they're going to have to do some work with Isabella because she fell to chaos at the end.
She did, yes.
To Nurgle, I believe. So Nurgle may still have her soul,
True enough.
Maybe that could be the dynamic. Maybe Vlad could be on a quest to get her soul back.
Oh. Well, now that would be a good way of getting the von Karsten line in place.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just?
I think, though, if they brought the von Karsten, they would have Manfred as the head of it.
Yeah, I think so. But he's been there for so long, and he is very powerful. I mean, he is more powerful than Vlad at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so
I don't for a second believe they're going to bring Vlad and Isabella back, but I like to dream.
I would like to think, I would like them to. That's for damn sure. I'd like them to. Because they're just great characters. They're great characters.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And they're just, they're two of my... there's a list of Warhammer Fantasy Battle characters who I absolutely adore, and they're on.
Yeah, yeah. I think everybody has a soft spot for them. Anybody who was in the game at a particular time has a certain soft spot for Vlad and Isabella. How can you not?
Yeah, and the miniatures were great.
Yeah.
A little goofy, but
they were
just
good
great.
though. I mean, Isabella still stands up pretty well.
Yeah, I'd say that.
It's not terrible.
No,
it's not terrible.
The original Vlad's got a bit of a large head, but, you know,
and he's a little
fine.
bit cartoony. He's got some funny gloves and some funny boots, but
it was the style of the time.
it was the style of the time, apparently.
It was the style of the time. Right, shall we start closing?
Yes.
Up then,
So, I mean, guys, the Hedonists book. Wow, wow. Just
what's the next one?
As
It's Techless, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, we've got the Broken Realms book coming. But what's the next battle tome?
I don't think anything's been announced.
Hasn't, has it? So,
No.
but they could surprise us. I mean, the Hedonists was a surprise.
Oh no, the next one's Lumineth.
Oh, the Lumineth. Yeah, the new. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, we spoke about that, didn't we? The new Lumineth.
We
book.
did, yeah.
Interesting. I kind of want it. You know.
I do, but I'm annoyed because I've got this one here.
Yeah, I know. It's contentious, that one. It is contentious.
It is. I see both sides of the argument.
Yes, me too. I understand. I mean, to be fair, the Hedonists book is kind of the precursor to it, because they did kind of the same with this one, a broader span, you know, but still 2 army books, the same army. The army kind of split in 2 over a period of time, but way worth it for the Hedonists, I can tell you.
I imagine Lumineth will be the same. Just it's just a big shame.
But like
Sorry,
in terms of new, like updated battle tomes, we haven't really heard a great deal, have we?
No, there's a few of them that really need it at the
Oh
moment.
God, is there? Isn't there just?
Yeah, mostly it's. I mean, the Skaven one is.
Yes.
Come on.
Maggotkin, come on.
Yeah.
Maggotkin of Nurgle, a popular army. They need a bit of love. They need some endless spells, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, bloody hell, the Ironjaws. Come on.
Yeah. Sylvaneth.
You know.
Sylvaneth could do with an update now.
Yep, Sylvaneth could do with something. I think Sylvaneth are going to get real weird.
I think when they come back, I think they're going to go nuts with them. If the fiction is anything to go by, they will go full on sort of like horror with the Sylvaneth.
I think that's very likely. I think they're going to be moving away from the wood elf creatures of the forest, and they're going to get real grim, real dark, real fast.
I think that might be the case. Yeah.
But apart from that, it's just all wait and see.
It is. It's on the AOS side. I mean, we know what's coming in 40k. There's, it's got a very specific plan, but AOS is kind of up in the air.
I think it might not be a bad idea to do 2 shows back to back, where we look at where we are with 40k and where we are with AOS.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea.
A narrative point of view.
Yeah, where we are, where we might be going.
Yeah, I think that would be quite a good idea at some point.
But, I mean, if the first Broken Realms book is anything to go by, then they're going to be essential.
I think so, yeah.
Because it was
the
brilliant.
Techless one's I really want to know what the hell Techless is playing
Well,
at.
fighting against Nagash, that's quixotic, to say the least, you know? Taking the fight to Nagash.
Is that going to be the new tilting at windmills?
I think
Fighting against Nagash.
I mean, Nagash is kind of in the ascendant at the moment after the Necroquake, so Techless, you might want to reconsider that one.
You might want to back up a little bit here, because this isn't going to go well for you, mate.
No, I mean, Nagash is for a start, he's one of the few sorcerers in the game who can actually counter you, you know?
Christ, imagine if this ends with Techless being kept in a jar or something.
Oh, wow. I wonder, is one of them going to win?
I don't think so, because both of them have miniatures to be
Yes,
sold.
of course, yeah. Of course.
And Techless has a brand new one. So,
yes, of course he does.
so he's not going to lose, but I think...
With his voluminous trousers.
I can't touch this.
Yeah.
Techless. But anyhow, right then, so we'll start closing this up. George, where can people find you if they went on such a quest to do so?
You can find me hanging around on Exaggerated Elegy on YouTube. You can find links to all of my written fiction, all of my published fiction, and various articles and reviews and things over at strangeplaygrounds.com. And you can come and chat to me over at Enigmatic Elegy on Twitter.
Excellent stuff. You can find me on Twitter at Grufflock. You can find me on Instagram at ADNickle. You can find the Fluffenhammer, weirdly enough, on Twitter as the Fluffenhammer.
Weirdly
you
enough.
Can find, I bet you didn't see that coming,
Yeah,
did you?
right.
You can find the Fluffenhammer on
Sneaky.
Facebook under the Fluffenhammer group and the Fluffenhammer page. And you can also come and join our wonderful little Discord, which I'm going to open up now and see what the last thing was being talked about on there. And it is a Skeletor Necron army.
Yes, I saw that.
Logan Blaze has found the notorious B.I.G. Raps H.P. Lovecraft's nemesis. So I'll try my very best to keep that. And there's an ongoing conversation about playing the Warhammer Odyssey mobile MMO, which a few of us are now doing just to pass some time. It's all right. You know, it's worth a punt for a free game.
Yeah.
I spent a $5 on it because I've had a $5's worth of entertainment out of it, so not a problem. Here, half a $5. I'm happy with that. Because the other day there was a huge, great big conversation going on, and it was super silly, and it was all about X-Wing Alliance and Elite and TIE Fighter.
Elite.
And,
God almighty.
And that's not even getting into the actual stuff that people are talking about on the hobby, which there's loads going on there. The Magic of Miniatures, Mr. Taz and all of his stuff. Really, really nice community that we've got on the Discord.
It sounds
it's a super
fun.
friendly place. And of course, the Facebook also is a lovely, super happy community.
It is.
So yeah, come and join us.
It's one of the least contentious areas in Warhammer fandom on the internet.
And I will happily keep it that
Yep.
way. I'm all up for having open conversation.
Oh yeah, no, we have some good chats. We have some good chats and debates and whatnot. But it's like non-combative. It's non-aggressive.
Yeah.
It's not like ideological or anything like that. It's just
No, there's no point. Life's too short to get into those kind of quicksands. But the last thing I want to talk about before we close up is a video got dropped the other day by Emil Elgroth. Now, some of you might know who he is. I'm just trying to stop noises from my phone. There we go. He is the guy who I have talked about a lot about his Legion of the Damned.
It's so freaking good.
So about a month ago, we were having a conversation, and it ended up being an idea for a video. I'm not going to have any kind of horse in this race. This is all Emil's work. I just sat and had ideas thrown at me and went, yep, that works, that doesn't. Right, it'll do that. I did a voiceover for it, and it is a absolutely stunning bit of work. It's on the YouTube channel, and it is called the Legio Damatorium Guarded Memories by Algroth. And I'm sorry, man, I've probably completely butchered that name. Go and watch it. It's only 2 minutes long. The guy has done some incredible work, and it's everything from the miniatures he's painted to the scenery he's created to the music he's found for it, for the cinematography. How often do you talk about cinematography when it comes to a miniatures video?
Yeah,
you know?
right. I mean, since when does that happen?
The cinematography he's done for it is incredible. Yeah, the guy has made something super special here, and I recommend everyone goes to watch it. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, great armies. I mean, just so much character.
Yeah. We've already started discussing what we do for a second one. You know,
Brilliance.
So with all that being said, we're going to get out of here. Thank you very much to you guys at home for listening.
Thank you always, guys.
And we will see you next time.
We will. Bye bye.
Sleep well. no matter what shape you might be out. Bye.
Mama prayed, and I know of heaven by the line at its gate, and I know of truth and America's way. So come drink the water if you wanna be saved. Don't drink the water if it's not from my stream. It's all still water if it's not flowing free. Don't drink the water at the watering hole, 'cause if you ain't got money, it can't save your soul. And all God's people say amen. God's people say amen. It's not a sin if it don't make me cry. He's not the devil unless there's fire in his eyes. It ain't the ghost if it don't speak in tongues. It's not a victory until the battle's been won. God's people say amen. All God's people say amen. Nobody prays unless they lose a son. They don't believe in God until the war's to be won. Well, I know of lies by the truth I've been told. The biggest one is that we're not growing old. Well, I know of sin by the things Mama prayed. I know of heaven by the light that is gate. And I heard of the kingdom is not far away. Drink the water if you wanna be saved. And all God's people said amen. And all God's people